While Assassin's Creed Mirage is set in 9th century Baghdad, and in the 69th year of that very century, an instigated slave revolt in modern-day Iraq sent shockwaves throughout the whole world. This bloodiest conflict between the so-called slaves and the masters is today known as the Zinj Rebellion. Welcome again, and let's dive straight into the battlefield. What first began in September of 869 and was concentrated in the districts of Iraq and Al-Ahwaz in the central regions of the Abbasid Caliphate later turned into one of the bloodiest revolts in history, with estimates of 2.5 million deaths on the higher side during the course of its 14-year duration, and this is the reason why the Zinj Rebellion has been categorized as one of the most destructive rebellions in the history, and it may be considered instrumental in causing instability in the region for centuries to come. The Zinj were actually Bantu-speaking people who had been forcibly taken from Southeast Africa and were enslaved primarily for agricultural labor as part of plantation economy of southern Iraq. It is said that both the working and living conditions of the Zinj were considered to be extremely miserable. The menial labor they were engaged in was difficult, and the slaves appeared to have been poorly treated by their masters. Before the major rebellion, two previous rebellion attempts are known to have occurred to get rid of these conditions, but at both times it was crushed very quickly, and little is known about their history prior to that. It is not clearly known as who exactly these rebels were and how many of them were actually slaves, but what we know is that their leader was a free man, Ali bin Muhammad, an individual of an uncertain background, with the narrative director of Mirage confirming Basim will meet him in AC Mirage. We dig deep into who he actually was, as very little is known about his family or early life due to scarcity of information and conflicting accounts. According to one version, his paternal grandfather was descended from the Abd al-Qais, and his paternal grandmother was a Sindhi slave woman, while his mother, a free woman, was a member of Banu Asad ibn Khuzaima. Some later commentators have presumed him to have been of Persian rather than the Arab background, but other historians consider this to be unlikely. Ali himself falsely claimed to have been descended from Ali ibn Abi Talib, the son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the fourth caliph of the Khilafat Rashida, but this was largely rejected by historians of the era as being false. Regardless of his origins, Ali appears to have spent at least a part of his youth living in the area of Ray in Iraq, and then he moved to the Abbasid capital of Samarra, where he mixed with some of the influential slaves of Caliph al-Muntasir. In 863, he made his way from Samarra to Bahrain, where he started to rouse people into rebellion against the Abbasid Caliphate. The Abbasid Caliphate once ruled over a huge state stretching from Algeria to Iran, that is the vast majority of the Islamic world, and one of the largest empires in history by the 1860s. However, the state had many problems like the civil war and societal unrest. Dynasties had begun to break away from the central government in Iraq, who could do little as the Abbasid Caliphate was weakening due to the revolts, which leads us to the anarchy at Samarra, which refers to the period of 861 to 870 and is known for extreme internal instability coupled with violent succession of four caliphs who in turn became part of rival military factions. Ali bin Muhammad also became one of the many warlords at the time, possibly at first just looking to take out a small state for himself. His rebellion eventually failed, and he found his way to Basra in southern Iraq and tried to grow his influence in the region and instigate another rebellion against the caliphate, only to fail very miserably. He then moved to the marshlands, where he got interested in the Zinj people and began to campaign to liberate and recruit the Zinj and other slaves, promising them freedom and wealth in exchange for their support. As the Zinj rose up and slew their masters, the word of rebellion spread quickly, and the downtrodden people from all over the state flocked to Ali's cause. Beginning in 861, the Abbasid Caliphate was already weakened, and the Zinj rebels became skilled at both guerrilla warfare and open battles. They captured several large cities and kept vast amounts of land for over a decade. With the construction of fortresses, they built up a large navy with which they traversed the river networks and even collected taxes taxes and minted their own coins in the areas they held. The Zinj quickly became experts at raiding towns, often raiding at night under the cover of darkness and liberating the slaves and seized horses, food and weapons. The city of Basra fell in September of 871 and several retaliatory campaigns from the Caliph failed to subdue the rebellion. The rebels expanded their operations over the next few years at their greatest territorial extent, reaching to within 50 miles of Baghdad. Finally, in 879, the Caliph sent his son Abul Abbas to combat the rebels with a major force and soon himself joined the fight, and by 883, a stronghold of Al-Mukhtar fell and Ali along with all the rebel commanders were either killed or surrendered. The Zinj rebellion caused a great disruption in economic activity in the region, and it caused extensive damage to the districts it took place in. Such was the societal instability that followed in its wake. The Abbasid state certainly didn't recover, only fairly holding on to power afterwards against renewed Byzantine attacks from Anatolia and other civil conflicts taking place throughout this period. What remains to be seen is how Ubisoft places this rebellion and its leader in the gameplay, and what will be the context of Basim's meeting with Ali. Will Basim have any role in the rebellion, and if his name comes up, are the Hidden Ones also involved in this rebellion inside the AC universe? While we wait for the official announcement on this, you can get to know more about Basim from this video. Make sure to subscribe to receive amazing updates like this. Signing off, Game of X.